Okay, let's talk today about the massive trade in the Stanley Cup Finals of the playoffs. It's actually very exciting because you don't typically see a trade this late in the season. But we have a trade between the Philadelphia Flyers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the LA Kings. So let's just jump right into it, boys and girls. Okay, we're gonna jump over to Cap Friendly, one of our best friends here. So we have the Columbus Blue Jackets acquiring Ivan Provorov. You can see right here at 30% retained. And the LA Kings acquired Kevin. I have no idea. Kunanton, Ivan Provorov. That's the 30% that they retained, and Hayden Hodgson. And then as well as the Flyers getting Cal Peterson, Sean Walker, Helling Grans. I'm gonna guess on that one. A second round pick from LA, and then the first round pick that Columbus got from LA in the Corpusalo and Gavrikov trade, as well as another second round pick, which will be determined to be a 2024 second or 2025 second at a later date after the first round of the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals. So, Stanley Cup. Anyways, so I want to break this down, kind of do a couple of let's get kind of the smaller pieces out because we all know we want to talk about Ivan Provorov, but let's talk about some of the bigger pieces, the smaller pieces, just to get these knocked out of the way. So, LA received Hayden Hodgson. He's just an AHL player. Was an undrafted player. Played mostly, you can see, in the ECHL for the last couple of years. But in the last 2 years, you can see he did play with the Layton Valley Phantoms, getting 12 points or 31 points. Yeah, 31 points in 46 games, which isn't terrible. That's not bad, especially for he's a right winger, so that was a good show up year for him. But of course, this past year not playing so hot in this case, but this guy puts up a ton of penalty minutes, so he is. You can tell he's a little bit of a tough grinder there. But you can see right here, he is a UFA soon, so he will be after this year he'll be off the books, but he'll probably just end up playing in the Ontario Reign for LA. Next, we have a veteran player in Kevin Kuntanen. So he was born the same year as me. Look at that. Drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in the third round, 83rd overall in 2009 draft. You can see again another guy. He did have a couple stints in the NHL. You can see he played a decent amount. I think it says 360 games in the NHL, which is a good amount. I mean, by the way, if you play, if it's 200 games in the NHL, you actually qualify for the pension. So good for him getting the pension. Not a crazy point getter, 80 points you can see, but did put a lot of penalty minutes in there, 188. So we can see that he's more of just a bottom role. I mean, and played more. You can see in the AHL right here. And mind you, Philadelphia was bad, and he still played in the AHL, but he is 33 years old. So it's just a defenseman, shoots left. But again, it's similar to the other contract for Hayden. He is a UFA after this year, so they can decide to not resign if they don't. They can resign if they want to, but they don't have to. So there's options there. So moving on, so that is part of the Los Angeles Kings portion right there. And again, having Ivan Provorov, they did retain 30% of his salary. So that is Columbus only having taken on 4.7 plus for the Ivan Provorov. So. Let's move again. We're gonna break down Ivan Provorov in a second. I know everyone wants to talk about him, but I want to knock out. We can knock out Ivan Provorov. Let's go to him. I wasn't planning on doing this at first, but let's go to Ivan Provorov. So this is one of the things they want to talk about. Ivan Provorov. The Columbus Blue Jackets they want to shore up that defensive system. So they get a decent defenseman, a left defenseman right here. You can see young, 26 years old. And at the end of this deal, he will be a UFA, so they will get 2 years out of him at 6.75 for the next 2 years. And that's a cap it. The important thing that I did want to note for Ivan Provorov, as you can see, and this is the reason I brought up cap friendly as well, is you can see total salary, right? So this is what's getting paid in actual dollars. So the cap hit, no matter what, I really like contracts in this case. Well, actually, I like contracts in general. So you can see that cap hit does not change throughout the year because the NHL says, hey, you make $40 million, let's say, over 8 years. That's $5 million a year, right? Or you make, whatever it is. You make $10 million on a 5-year deal. That's a $2 million a year, right? But the way the structure of the money, the actual dollars that the team pays is different, right? You can see, so in his first year, he got paid that amount, right? He got paid just the straight 6.75 amount. Then the salary drops Then he gets a bigger bonuses. You can see the bonuses start to go up here, and you can see in the salary starts to go up as well. So you can see right here is a normal year, lean year, higher than his cap hit, lower than his cap hit, higher than his cap hit, and higher than his cap hit. So you can see if you take the 6.75, that's 12, that's 13.5 in cap hit. You can see he has 8.5 and 8.6. So that's looking at 15 million. So they're actually spending more, $1.5 million more in actual dollars than they are for the cap hit. So that is one of the reasons that, it's a good thing that Philly offloaded those real dollars onto Columbus, but it's just something to take into consideration when you're considering contracts and why it's big. So why did they trade for Ivan Provorov? Let's jump over to his stats right here. For his stats, you can see played the whole time with the Philadelphia Flyers, drafted out of from the WHL with the Brandon Wheat Kings. Actually, the Brandon Wheat Kings are very good. He did very well in his junior years for those. 73 points as a defenseman in 62 games and 61 and 60. So he's a point per game in his juniors, and you can see he did put up some points in the playoffs as well for them. So and he was by the way he was a 7th overall pick. I mean he's not a guy just to scoff at. A 7th overall pick is a pretty big deal in this case. So 6'1", 201 pounds, not a massive defenseman that we're seeing nowadays. A lot of them being 6'3", 6'4", but still has some youth to him. 26. So we're kind of seeing who Ivan Provorov is as a player. Mind you, the Philadelphia Flyers have not been great. You can see right here. In 1920, they did make the playoffs, and they did play 16 games. And they had this habit of playing. They missed the playoffs, and then they make the playoffs. And they miss the playoffs, and they make the playoffs, and they miss the playoffs. And now in the last 2 years, they did miss the playoffs. So you can see right here. This is kind of where I want to say. What I typically do is I take the last 3 years that they have performed and kind of use it as a baseline. But I am going to start in the playoffs in this case, just for this example, just because we want to see who he was when the Flyers were a good team, right? So when the Flyers were a good team, at 69 games, he had 36 points, so a little over a half point per game. And you can kind of see where it drops. So you can see a little under half point per game, 26 and 56 games, 31 points in 79 games, and 27 and 82. So you can see the progression of the players actually gone down. With the team, mind you, he is part of the team, right? So if he's not doing good, it means he's not doing his part, right? We see people like Dylan Larkin putting up almost a point per game on a bad Red Wings team. So you can still be a good player on a bad team, but Provorov's actually, in my opinion, the Philadelphia Flyers could have. I mean, this guy was not great value in my opinion for what they were getting, but. I think that the Columbus Blue Jackets were just trying to get some sort of. I honestly don't know why they traded for Provorov. If you don't remember, he was part of the scandal. I'm not gonna use the word scandal in this case. He did decide not to dress up in the Pride jerseys for the Philadelphia Flyers, which started this a little bit of a chain reaction. But that is his choice, so we will leave it at that as his choice, whether you agree or disagree. So. But again, just taking the personal or as some people would say, political side out of it, the points just don't match up. I don't know why Philadelphia did this, or why I know why Philadelphia did this. I don't know why Columbus traded for him. It just doesn't make sense to me because he just isn't as dynamic as he needs to be. He doesn't lead a line well, and I think probably the concern is that he had too much responsibility on a Philadelphia team that wasn't playing well. And so I think if you give him a little bit more of a reduced role, I think that he potentially could thrive a little better, right? Now, the Columbus Blue Jackets had a ton of injuries this year. Werenski was out. That's your $8 million. I'm pretty sure it's $8 million defenseman. So that is a huge hit. He's an assistant captain as well, and so they really need to shore up that blue line. And I think. What we're seeing here is now Jarmo's actually, I think he's been in the job for about 10 years now. So this is Jarmo Kekalainen, by the way. He's a GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I believe he's feeling a little bit of the pressure to do well. They signed Johnny Gaudreau. They have Laine. They have Boone Jenner. They have Werenski, who will be back. They have Kent Johnson. So there is not a young team, right? If you look at the, let's go with the Buffalo Sabres. You go with the Detroit Red Wings in this case. You get some of the or even the Anaheim Ducks. all younger cores, right? In Detroit, you're seeing a Sider, you're seeing a Casper, you're seeing a Raymond, you're seeing an Evanson. Coast is coming up through the prospects, right? And Buffalo, you're seeing Devin Levi, you're seeing Rasmus Dahlin, you're seeing Tuck's relatively young too. He's kind of he's like 27ish, right? But there's a lot of young players on that team. Same with Anaheim with Zegras. With those younger players, when you have a younger core, you have a longer time to be bad or to continue to build around those guys, get more top end guys because you're drafting higher in the lineup. Well, now you have Columbus signed this big name team, this guy in Johnny Gaudreau, who's up, I think he's almost a point per game on a Columbus Blue Jackets team. You have Laine as well. You have Jenner. These guys are not, they're not the youngest. They're in their mid-20s, right? So there's their timeline of being good and wanting to stick with the team, especially Laine, who signed a shorter deal as opposed to Gaudreau. Gaudreau signed a 7-year deal. So by trading for Provorov, you're just trying to move that core, right? You're trying that he's kind of in that core area. So in the 2 years after his contract's up, you could say, hey, do we want to keep him, or where's the team at? Do we try and continue to build around this? Do we do a retool? It kind of gives you an idea to say, hey, like, we can do something with this guy or we can't. And so it's just, I think this is more of they're just trying to make the playoffs because I think Yarmo's job's on the line, in my opinion. They are starting with a new coach, potentially Mike Babcock, and I know there's plenty of controversy around him as well. If you haven't heard the Johan Franzen stories, the Mitch Marner as well, if you want, comment below so that I can tell you about it, because I would love to do a story on it, but I don't want to I just want to make sure that we're all informed and not starting any more drama that needs to be started. So anyways, let's jump over again. So we talked about the Ivan Provorov portion of this. Talk to the LA Kings. Now, in my opinion, I don't have a Philadelphia Flyers hat or a shirt or jersey or anything. So I wore orange in solidarity of the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think that they absolutely won this. I mean, first off, they get to move Ivan Provorov off, and I thought he didn't fit the mold of what they were trying to build. I know Tortorella actually, I sat him at one point. I scratched him, which is crazy, by the way. I apologize for yawning. It's honestly crazy that because he's such an expensive player and you think he's good, but you're scratching a guy who's one of your better players, and it's more of a setting an example, right? So in my opinion, there's a little bit of an attitude issue there with Provorov. So I think that's smart of Philadelphia, especially who are going into a rebuild, to optimize their cap space and try and acquire as many picks as they can, which is super smart. And again, I think this is the proper way to do a rebuild, and I'm so happy for Greer to be doing that smart move with the Flyers organization. So anyways, we're gonna move on to some of the better. Let's go with Cal Peterson. We'll start off there. So Cal Peterson is a massive contract. So this is in 2021. He signed a huge deal in September, right? Thinking like, oh man, this guy's gonna be the goalie of the future. Oh, we're gonna ride him. Quick's on his way out, so we need a goalie for the guy, and he's playing well enough. We want to keep him, so we're gonna sign him to a 3-year deal. And he's a little bit, I believe he's a little bit older. No, he's not even that old. He's 28 years old. So they're like, hey, we want to work with this guy. So they're like, hey, we're gonna sign him to a 3-year deal, $5 million AAV, or $5 million cap hit. So you can see right here. So $5 million, modified no trade clause. So submits a 10-team no trade clause. So Philadelphia was not on that list. So he did not play well in 2022, 2023. So let's jump over to his stats real quick just to see what we're working with. So, but the reason they had a lot of confidence in him before, when they signed him in 2021, I believe it was. Did we say that? 2021. So the reason they signed him at that point, they had seen right here, okay, this guy has a .922 save percentage in 1920. That's great. I love that. It's only 8 games, but that's pretty good. 2.64 goals against. Now moving into a more prominent role, playing 35 games, he had a 2.89. So his goals against got worse, and so did his save percentage, but it's still very respectable. .911 is very respectable. League average, I believe it typically right now is like a .907, I believe, is the average for a goaltender in the play or in the NHL. So he signs that deal in this right before this season of the 2021-2022. You can see plays 37 games, and he stays the same on goals against the average and gets worse on save percentage, which is not good, right? So you're thinking that, hey, he's letting in more goals. He's not able to. He has less shots on goal, but he's the goals that are going in. So you can see the same amount of goals went in. It was 2.89, but the amount of shots he had was less, and more goals went in, which is a problem, right? So that just tells you that the goalie got worse. And so they said, hey, man, okay, all right, next new year, right? Let's start him 10 games, 3.75 playing. I mean, put almost a whole goal in per game a night, right? And at .868, that is bad. That is AHL level goaltending, and which is why he got sent down to the AHL in his first year of his new contract too. Played 40 games on there, a 2.88, so similar to those two seasons in 2021 and 21-22, and only a .904. So he did get better. We do recognize that the defense is worse in the AHL, but so is the offense. So he should be able to do a little bit better down there. And then in the playoffs, just didn't do well. 3.9 in 2 games and a .826. So this is one of the reasons they want to move off this contract, because he was just not playing well. So that is one of the reasons you move off him. Again, you're saving that money for the 2 years here, though. So that is the big selling point, is that they like that. Philadelphia's like, hey, yeah, we'll take him. So what did Philadelphia get for taking on Cal Peterson? Well, they took on Cal Peterson, and they also took on Sean Walker, which are both salary. So Cal Peterson has this year, next year. Sean Walker is in Philadelphia for 1 more year. So let's go over Sean Walker's information, right? Not young, but not old, but a highly desirable guy. I imagine they are going to flip him at the deadline, because he is a defenseman who shoots right, which is a hot commodity in the NHL right now. So there's a high demand for right-handed defensemen. He's not very tall for the defenseman. In my opinion, I want the Red Wings to sign him. That I would like them to trade for him. Yes, please. But I imagine he will end up getting a higher draw when it comes to the trade deadline in the following year. So I like this guy. So you can see not a crazy totals, but I really like Sean Walker. I think he's great. I believe if we go to JFresh, and here we are at JFresh's page, you can see Sean Walker, acquired by the Philadelphia Flyers, is a depth offensive defenseman with some upside when it comes to the transition play and creating chances for himself. Could be useful. So he is a depth player. Got paid a little high, $2.7 million, which is a bit high for the gentleman who is not putting up, for an offensive defenseman who is not putting up major points. You can see 13 points in over 70 games for the LA Kings. But does he have potential? He's never been a huge point putter upper. You can see he's about pretty much for the last 3 years of his university stint, he was putting about a half point per game, which is not too bad. And then with the rain, that his production kind of slowed, and his production really hasn't picked up too much. A little per game, 18 points in 47 games, not bad. But again, they want to see more out of Sean Walker, and I don't think they're going to look to re-sign him, so they just move the money out. So smart of the LA Kings to do that. Again, I think that he'll be able to flip it. You'll probably be able to flip him for like a third or a fourth round pick. So which is exactly what a rebuild is. You're going out there and getting picks. So moving on to the next piece, we have Haaland Grounds. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Haaland Grounds. I just know he's a young prospect. So he's 21 years old, defenseman, shoots right. Again, another hot commodity. But he was a second round pick, and he was a high second round pick, 35th overall, right? So in 2020, this is when we had 31 teams. So this is, essentially he's 4 away from a first round pick. So I don't know why he got drafted so high, in my opinion. I don't know much about him, but he did play in the Swedish leagues, 17 points in 34 games, 27 and 27. That's pretty good. You can see with the Ontario Reign, 24 points in 56 games. Not too bad for defenseman. And a big drop off, and then 9 points in 59 games. So but he's got it's funny. There's a thing they say, you can't teach intangibles and you can't teach size. 6'4" right here, 205 pounds. He could use to gain some weight. He does if he's that going to be that tall, he should be a bigger guy. Probably gets knocked off the puck a little more than he should. So I would suggest for him as a completely non hockey player. Again, this is the undrafted hockey fan page because I was not drafted. Um, and so I think he needs to gain some weight. I think that'd be good for him. And for that, for taking on the Cal Peterson contract, and as well as getting Sean Walker, who they'll probably end up flipping anyways. They got back a prospect and a second round pick from LA. So that is a decent pickup. I think that's maybe a little bit. I think they could have probably got a little bit more. I know that for the Mark Stahl trade, for 1 year, the Red Wings got a second round pick just for taking down Mark Stahl's $5 million contract. Now Cal Peterson is 2 years of $5 million, plus they had to pick up Sean Walker. So I can see essentially it's a second round pick and a second round pick to move these guys. So they kind of match. Maybe that makes a little more sense. So, by the way, one of the things I've been told is that a second round pick, and in this case, Helga Grans, is essentially, if you have 2 second round picks, it essentially equals a first round pick. It's arbitrary, right? Like difference between the first overall and the 15th overall, right? But that's kind of the general rule of thumb. So essentially, they're trading 2 second rounders for these 2 contracts to take him on. So, and again, so for Ivan Provorov at the retained price, Ivan Provorov at that price was a first round pick and a second round pick. So that's a really good deal. I did not think they would get a first round pick for Ivan Provorov, at least a first and a second round pick. That was to me, that's actually what Philip Hronek went for, was a first and a second round pick, and as well as Jacob Chikrin, who had term, went for a first or 2 firsts and a second, or no, a first and 2 seconds, I believe. You can correct me in the comments you want. Like that, I don't mind being wrong. But anyways, that's where they end up picking the first round pick in this year's draft, which we do know the 2023 draft is stacked, and then a second round draft pick either in 24 or 2025. So let me know what your thoughts are. Hey, who won this deal in your opinion? Like, I think in my opinion, it is Philadelphia. They are doing the rebuild right. I think LA also. I would also say LA is actually a winner as well. They moved out so much. Actually, I'm going to jump over just so you guys can see it. They moved out $5.6 million in cap space, not only this year, but they also moved out the $5 million for Cal Peterson next year, and so the Hayden and Kevin both are gone after this year. The Provorov will stay around for another year as well, so it'll probably end up being similar to this. But they saved $5 million, so I think they were with the intention of signing Gavrikov and Korpisalo, potentially, at least Gavrikov. So I am really curious on what's going to happen with this. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like and subscribe, and and if you hit comment, I will comment back because I want to have some detailed discussions on this and who you think's your winner. You think it's Philadelphia? Is it Columbus? Do you like Provorov? What do you like about LA? Again, I think it was a win for Philly. I think it's a win for LA on the cap space side. And I don't know how it's going to work out with Columbus, but I hope it does because I have a soft spot for Columbus. More so Merzlikin and Werenski. So because Werenski and Larkin, they're buddies. And Merzlikin is my favorite goalie in the NHL currently. So anyways, hit like, subscribe, and love you. Bye.